Hello everyone, as you can see, I've got something new to play with in the brewery. The good people at Keg King have very kindly sent me an Apollo Snub Nose to do a little road test with, and I'm going to review it on this video and go through all of the features of it and what I think of this product. So let's get into it. So there we have it out of the box. This is the Apollo Snub Nose in all its glory. I've got to say, first impressions are very good. It looks like a really good quality bit of kit, but rather than me fumbling my way through the features and specifications of this, I'm going to get Nick from Keg King to help us out by talking through this product and everything that we can do with it. So let's get over to the conversation I had with Nick and go through all of the technical details of what the Snub Nose can do. Right, so hello Nick, thank you so much for joining me to help explain the kind of features and everything to do with the Snub Nose that you very kindly arranged to have sent to me, so also massive thank you for that. Before we get into all of that stuff, do you want to just give us a little bit of an intro as far as what you do for Keg King and what your role is with them?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. Always a pleasure talking about our products and talking about brewing in general. My name is Nick, and what do I do at Keg King? I do everything that needs to be done, but most importantly, I support the ideas from the market, from the consumers, and I try and push them into products. That's pretty important. Just look after the stuff we have, the best of our abilities. We have an amazing team. Obviously, it's more than one person. I'm just part of a big team, and we try and bring out the best products we can.
So we're going to be talking about the Snub Nose today. We can see it behind you there. Let me just pop up. That's the picture I wanted up on the screen. So that is the Snub Nose. I think the first thing most people are going to notice about that straight away is that it's got the conical shape to it. So what's the benefit of a conical shape on that, first of all?
So just back up a quick little bit there. Snub nose just means that it's a sort of closed bottom of the fermenter. So you'll see on the picture it's really a closed bottom, as opposed to a unitank where it should have either a collection bottle or you can have a valve to dump the yeast if you choose to do so. So the snub nose, the reason why we want to go conical is you walk into any brewery right now and all their fermenters are conical. What it does is at the end of fermentation, it helps to collect the trub towards the bottom. The gravity will help to push that to the bottom. It should help make you clearer beer, but also it will separate that trub, the yeast, and the dry hopping, and it will really help during the cold crash to just gather that at the bottom. And the fact that it's a true conical shape as well, so it's a 70-degree angle, so it's got that proper conical shape. I do cheat and use gelatin powder as well, or biofine to help clear the beer, but it just makes it so easy. It's all in the fermenter. It's fantastic.
Okay, great. So yeah, more compact yeast cone.
Yeah.
Probably slightly better yield potentially as well with that because of that.
You have a more compact trub, and also because it's clear, you can see exactly when you're drawing out of it. You can really see. You can get to the last drop. Which I think every homebrewer is trying to fight for that last drop, right? So with the conical shape and the pickup tube, the floating pickup tube, it just gets you to that really sweet spot. And it's really, really important to have that conical shape. You don't have to use it, obviously. No, it's just an added benefit for sure.
One of the things that impressed me when I looked at it straight away out the box was seems like all of the hardware with this is kind of fairly high spec. You know, we've got like stainless wherever we can use it, and there's some really interesting features on the lid which I put on the screen there. But if you want to sort of show us what is involved there yourself, because I know you've got one to hand, so let me just bring you back onto the screen there a bit bigger.
Let's focus on the lid. So the lid, when we talk about the lid, we have this part here, which is the lid itself. We have the thermal well and we have the neck ring. So I'll put the neck ring to the side. It's really well built. But the lid in itself, you have your O-ring, which is very thick, and that creates the seal on the fermenter by pushing to the side of the actual fermenter. And then you have obviously the holes for the post. So you have your gas post, liquid post. the dry hop pod here. So we can talk about dry hopping a little bit as well, because
Mhm.
there's different processes and different ways to do things. So that comes away. And
So
this is
that's
just
the PRV and a dry hot port kind of integrated, right? That's what we've got there.
correct. So
Yeah.
I'll open them as well. So the PRV is just a pressure release valve. As you can see,
Hmm.
this one is the white one, which is 25 psi. And the spring will push back and release pressure. You have seals to keep everything airtight. So that screws in. Um, the dry hop pod here. So basically, you remove this, you can dry hop. We can talk about the process of dry hopping as well. I think for me, my favorite feature of the lid is definitely the thermal well, because one thing about brewing is obviously your mashing is very important, but the most important part is fermenting, right? And
Yeah,
when you're
100%.
fermenting, what you want to do is maintain the temperature to the best of your abilities. So the thermal well just screws on to the back of the lid. The reason why it's done that way is because here you can actually attach a spray ball, and here you can put in a half-inch PSP to barb, and then you can have a
Okay.
CIP, a clean-in-place process, right? Because now you'll
Great.
have your
Yeah.
spray ball on the inside, and it will clean in
Yeah.
place. No more than 40 degrees Celsius. Be careful because its PET will
Yeah.
warp. Um, but anyway, that's the thermal well, and 99% of the thermometers or the probes will fit in there. I'm saying 99% because I don't want to say all of them, just in case. Um,
Yeah.
I know
Sure.
how internet works.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that simple. It goes right there. There's a seal on the inside of the thermal well. It seals right there, and on the underneath of the lid, there are different sort of markings where if you want to insert a cooling coil, you can actually
Hmm.
drill through at different spots and
Okay.
just your own cooling coils. Now with our new products, the dual temp vest turns any fermenter into a jacketed fermenter, so you don't have to use that anymore. Um, and lastly, just let's talk quickly about dry hopping, if that's okay with you. There's two ways to do it. You can do it with through the dry hop pod. As I said, you just unscrew the dry hop pod. Obviously, you want to release the pressure first entirely, slowly. But then you open the dry hop pot and you put your dry hop through there, right? So that's a bit tedious because it's not very big, can be a bit annoying. Um,
But you could get a little
so what
funnel into that or something, I guess, just to make that
yeah,
bit
you
easier,
can make it
right?
work. You can really make it work. I think
Yeah.
most people, including us, what we end up doing is we release the pressure at the top and we actually open the lid entirely. We just remove the
Yeah.
lid because when you're releasing the pressure, what's going to happen is all the CO2 built up and absorbed by the wort
Yeah.
fermenting is going to be released and push out any potential air in there. So it's going to
Yeah.
create a nice bed of
You're gonna
CO2.
have kind of positive pressure on that for a bit afterwards
That's
as
right.
well, because it's all fizzing up and coming
Well,
out,
yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
that's right. And our fermenters comes with they all come with a stainless steel filter as well. So
Yeah.
you will not have a blocked post because that is a nightmare when you're trying to transfer. Thank you.
Got you covered for that one. There we go.
That filter is really good. I've managed to go 300 grams of dry hopping in a single batch, and the filter was being a champion, saving my post from being
Yeah.
clogged during the transfer. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
it's
think
a good sized little filter there, and I think you've I think you mentioned when we spoke before about choosing the width for the filter quite carefully for this one. Is that right? So it was
yeah. There's also a plastic one which is a lot cheaper. The plastic one is probably like $1 or something, right?
yeah,
But the plastic one doesn't work as well. And the way we look at things at Keg King is really to try and give you the best thing out of the box. We don't want you to have to buy different bits and pieces because we chipped out on one component somewhere.
mhm,
So we've made the conscious decision to add all these bits and pieces. That's why you have three PRVs, a blue, purple, and white one now. The blue is 10 psi, the purple is 15, and the white one is 25 psi. Thank you.
yeah.
And you get the filter, you get the thermal well, you get everything in the box
So it
because
is
it's important.
perfectly okay to go straight in with pressure fermenting and not have a spunding valve. You can just attach the correct
Correct.
PRV and go
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, you can do it, or
Yeah,
you can use our Spundy, which you can see at the top here. It is a cheap item that I recommend that everyone use, just because it's an additional sort of safety feature. You
yeah,
don't
sure.
have to use it because, well, it's homebrewing. At the end of the day, you do you do you.
Mhm.
It's just an added safety feature. The last point, very important to me on the lid, is the way our fermenters have been designed. The width of the neck is slightly different to whatever else is on the market for other plastic fermenters. However, our lid, obviously being 100% food grade and food safe lid due to the plastic chosen to build it, um, we also sell a thicker O-ring, so you can buy our lid. If you don't have our fermenters, you can buy our lid, remove that O-ring, get a different one which is thicker, and you can use our lid on a different brand fermenter.
Okay.
So that, because we think our lid is really good the way it was designed. It's a very well thought out lid, including the thermal well and everything being pre-drilled and preset for you. So it's very important to also know that you have that flexibility. So even if you don't have one of our fermenters, and you have another one, you think, oh, this lid is pretty cool,
Yeah.
I want to change. You can, because it will come with a thermal well depending on the store, but you will have access to all of these different features there.
Yeah. That's cool that you can do that upgrade. Actually, I didn't realize that was possible. So that's brilliant. On that
Yeah.
note, I think, am I right in saying that the fitting for the dry hop port is 1/2 inch BSP as well?
Yes.
So there's a little bit of potential there for kind of modification and like doing other, attaching different types of valves to achieve different things, as well as the clean in place that you talked about before already. So I think people who like to maybe come up with crazy modifications for things themselves, there's that's kind of built into it a little bit as well.
Yeah, you can. It's your lid. You can do a lot of things. So we use standard thread sizes so that you
Hmm.
have access to all the different bits and pieces on the market and do whatever you want with it. The lids themselves are fairly cheap. You can find replacement lids as well if you want to modify a lid but have a spare one or do whatever you want. Then at least you're flexible. There are rumors that we're working on a stainless steel lid for our fermenters. That is correct. We are working on it.
Hmm.
We need to be at a price point that we are happy with as well, but the stainless steel lid would only be an upgrade. So the fermenters will
Yeah,
always come with our trademark lid, but it's going to happen. I'm very confident it's going to happen, and it will have a TC port and all these different things. But
yeah.
that's for the very advanced sort of homebrewers when you've been there for a few years and now you want to do different things for whatever reason of yours, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's great for the people who want to, tinker and add extra features, like we said. So definitely will be a few people who be interested in that. I think. Yeah. So we talked about the handles, didn't we? You said you wanted to come back to the
Yeah.
handles again.
The handles are very very good, very sturdy. They're on the side. They're built into the fermenter already when we blow mold them. They're very resistant. I can guarantee you they work very well. We also have a 60-liter version of that fermenter,
Hmm.
and the handles can handle 60, 70 kilos of weight on them. So
That's
yeah,
good to know.
it's great because it's right there. Of course, you don't
Yeah.
move your fermenter every day, right? But when you need to move it, having the handles there is great.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've kind of covered all the main features there. I think last thing, with the snub nose, as far as like maintenance and lifespan, what's the best way to look after it? And realistically, lifespan wise, is there a sort of end, best before date with it, or is it just a case of trying to make sure that it's regularly, tested and checked and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. First of all, it's made of PET, obviously, right? So PET has
Yeah.
benefits and drawbacks. Some of the drawbacks, to look after your tank, you want no heat in it. So you want to stay at 40 degrees Celsius.
Hmm.
It's you can go above, but then you'll start stressing the plastic. And what happens in the polymer chains with the heat, they will actually, instead of being long and solid, they will shorten. They will lose their strength by being shortened by the heat. So you really want to stay at under 40 degrees. You shouldn't need more than that anyway, because with the wide opening, you can get in there with a sponge, a soft sponge, and really clean it out very nicely. Um, the snub nose is very thick as well. The plastic is really, I'm sure you can testify to that
Yeah,
yourself.
for sure. I mean, I've obviously you looked at other plastic fermenters and it was noticeable that it's very much
Yeah,
more kind of rigid as far as the
yeah,
plastic
yeah,
goes.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's much thicker. And what it does, it just makes it more resistant. So you want to stay under that 40 degrees Celsius. Now, in terms of the longevity of the product, we give it 2 years right off the box. So you open the box day one and you have a good 2 years of use. After that, it's good to do a hydro test after 2 years to double check that the plastic is still resistant. There's different ways to do hydro testing. You can check on different locations. I'm not too familiar with the UK where you'll be able to do that. But hydro testing, what it does is the fermenter is being filled with 30 liter of water, completely full, and then keep putting pressure into it. And if the pressure, the fermenter maintains the pressure, it's good to go for another 2 years. If it breaks, the water, the liquid will absorb the mass, so it won't explode as a bomb if you want. It won't do anything. It will just go like that, right? So it's very important to do that because obviously we're playing with pressure. Pressure is a serious thing. You want to be careful. You want to make sure the kids are not around and these sort of things with pressure, because at the end of the day, it is a pressure vessel and we have to respect that and treat it accordingly. But yeah, just clean it with warm water. You can use any sort of cleaner, sodium percarbonate, and all these variations of that. Sanitizer is fine as well. I store my snub nose clean with a mix of water and sanitizer in there, about I think just like a third, maybe 5 liters in there.
You can leave it with like Star San or whatever, just sat in there to keep it
sanitized. Correct. Yeah, and I think I keep I go the extra mile because it depends how. Everyone is getting to that age where you have families and kids and stuff like that, so you can't brew as often as you might want. So I actually purge the headspace as well in the fermenter, and I keep it under, I think it's 5 psi, very, very little pressure. But what I'm trying to do is there's water sanitizer mix in there, and when I need to use it, I can just open it up. I know it's fully sanitary, and I can put my wort in there. Because time is of the essence when we're doing things. So you want to be as efficient as possible.
Yes, good tip. Brilliant. Well, I think that's pretty much everything then, unless there's anything that you want to add there, Nick.
No, that's good. I feel like I've been talking at you.
No, well, that was the idea. I wanted you to do the work for me on this one, so thank you. That's perfect. Anyway, but yeah, thank you so much for your time, and I'm really looking forward to trying out the snub nose. So cheers.
Excellent.
Right, so we've had the full lowdown on the features from Nick. It's time to take this for a proper test drive and see how it functions. Out of the box, I found the assembly really straightforward. You can pretty much work it out without the instructions. You can access those via a QR code on the box. Personally, I would like to see a paper copy in the box with them, just so you know that all of the parts are there straight away and you've got basic assembly instructions to refer to. One thing that did seem to be missing off of the online instructions was a reference to which value each colour PRV was. So I think maybe the manual is a little bit out of date on that front. Other than that, it was all really clear and pretty easy to work out. So yeah, no problem with that at all. The features on it I'm really impressed with. I think it's great that we've got a little dry hot port there. It's a pretty narrow opening, so maybe that could be a little bit bigger. I've actually bought myself a little funnel and chopped the neck down a little bit for that. So maybe that's something that they could include in the box just to make that dry hot port a little bit more functional. Just a little funnel that fits into it nicely. The threads on the top are a little bit tight on my one, but I would always recommend with these types of fermenters that you get yourself a strap wrench anyway, because the lids can get a little bit sticky, especially once they've had obviously pressure in them and so on. So I'm not fussed about that. One thing we didn't mention in the chat with Nick, which I think is actually a pretty cool little design feature of this, is the Thermowell actually provides a guide for the floating dip tube. So you can thread one of the rings that holds the floating ball and the little filter over that, and it will guide the float straight up the center or straight down the center of the fermentation vessel as you empty it. And I think that's something I've noticed with other fermenters with floating dip tubes in them. A little issue with those can be that it gets stuck to the side of the fermenter, or clings onto the wall as it goes down. So that should solve that issue, and I think that's a nice little design feature that they've added in there. So let's get some beer into this and see how it goes. Okay, so first up, let's talk about the dimensions of the snub nose. It is obviously going to be shorter than the plastic unitank type fermenters, but it's still a little bit big if you're looking to fit it inside of a standard kind of under-counter fridge, which a lot of people use for fermentation chambers. This is not a criticism at all, it's just something to be aware of. Check the dimensions obviously for yourself. It's not going to be a problem for me because I've got a beast of a fermentation larder fridge behind me which will fit 2 into it comfortably. So once I actually got some beer fermenting in the snubby, I was really pleased to see that it held pressure perfectly from the beginning. There wasn't any tweaking or additional PTFE tape that was required to make those seals work. So that was great, and that's definitely not the experience that I've always had with other plastic fermenters. I tested it initially with just the blue 10 psi pressure release valve on there to control the fermentation pressure, which worked fine. I did check that though with the spunding valve, and it was reading more like 13 psi. So I'd maybe just say check the accuracy of those if you're going to rely on them for your pressure control. For me, 13 psi is a little bit high as a kind of minimum value that I'd be able to use for pressure fermentation. So I'm definitely going to be continuing to use a spunding valve as the primary control for the fermentation pressure, just to guarantee that I've got that kind of accuracy with the reading, but also so that I can access the lower levels of pressure, certainly below 10 psi if I want to be in that range. The next thing to test out was the dry hop port. So the ability to open that up while keeping the rest of the lid on means that it's actually really easy to run a low pressure line through the gas in and keep a constant stream of CO2 coming out of the lid while you are adding the dry hops. That means you can maintain a oxygen-free environment the whole time you're adding those hops through the port, which is something that I tried out in this instance to see if it would work easily, which it did. The beer itself was quite a modestly hopped one, so there was only 60 grams going in with the dry hop. I did find it fairly easy to get that in through the port by trickling them in with the funnel, but I think if you were looking at a larger dry hop, it would become a little bit tedious and frustrating trying to get those in through such a narrow opening. It will potentially clog up really easily if you have any pellets that are clumped together, or if you just try and throw them in too fast. So I think if I am going for bigger dry hops with this, I will probably resort to just taking the whole lid off and throwing them in that way. That said, the dry hop port is still going to be useful to me for smaller dry hops, and also for if I'm adding anything else in, for example, finings or liquid hop extracts like Spectrum and things like that. So it's certainly going to get used, even if I might not be applying it when it comes to, you know, New England IPAs or things like that, where I'm putting in 200, 300 grams of dry hop. While we're talking about the lid, I'll just mention the O-ring that is used to form the seal between that and the fermenter itself. Keg King have chosen a fairly chunky O-ring for this purpose, and that actually makes it really easy to get the lid on and off after you've removed the securing ring. And that's something that I found a lot more difficult on similar fermenters, where it's a much tighter kind of pressure fit for those. So that's another nice bit of design that just helps with ease of use. Anyway, back to the dry hopping. So when it came to the cold crashing process, it was noticeable that everything dropped out quite quickly and formed a really nice compact cone in the bottom of the fermenter, along with all of the trub and everything else that had already settled out. Because of that, and the dip tube being guided down the middle by the firmer well, the filter was able to go right down into the center of that cone and get pretty much all of the beer out of the FV that was above that level. As a result, I yielded a 19-litre keg that was absolutely full to the brim from a 20-litre batch, which I was really pleased with. The filter on the dip tube performed really well, and it's great that it comes in stainless steel as standard. That extra weight that it adds to it keeps it nicely submerged, so you don't need to add any extra weight like you might with a plastic version of that kind of filter. My only complaint with it is that you can't remove the end cap on there, so it is a little bit difficult to clean it out afterwards. The silicone dip tube that attaches to the filter I did find to be a little bit thin and flimsy, so it has a tendency to form kinks in it, especially when it's floating at the top of the FV, and that can make the transfer a little bit slow at first until that kind of straightens out as it drops down through the beer. I've actually now swapped that out for some thicker walled tubing that has solved that issue. So again, as a little bit of feedback to Keg King, that's maybe something that could be changed quite cheaply and easily to improve the performance of that. The handles on the snubby do look a little bit suspect, to be honest, but in use they're actually really solid and didn't have any issues with them at all. My only gripe would be that the corners on them are a little bit on the sharp and pointy side, so there is the potential to catch your hands on those if you're removing the securing ring from the lid manually. So again, get yourself a strap wrench to save yourself any issues with that. I actually found that when I was moving it in and out of the fridge, I'd normally pick it up by the stand itself, and there weren't any problems doing it that way either. It sits really securely into the stand, so you can move it by the stand or lift it out of the stand by the handles without any issues. Finally, cleaning wise, aside from the filter that I previously mentioned, cleaning it up is an absolute doddle. Just a sponge, some warm soapy water and a bit of elbow grease, and you'll have it sparkling in no time at all. And obviously leave it with some Star San or similar sanitizer in there, as Nick was talking about in the previous discussion. So what do I think overall? I was a big fan of pressure fermenting before I got the Snubby, and that's only increased by using this. You can get one for $99.99 in the UK. I'll put a link in the description for that. And at that price, considering everything you get out of the box and all the features of it and the quality, I think that's a really, really good deal. The design and build quality of it are really good and well thought out, which makes it really nice and easy to use in the brewery. The issues that I highlighted in the video are all pretty minor. Really, they're more kind of feedback for improvements to Keg King that could make it even better, rather than anything that I would say should put anyone off buying one. It's certainly not something that would put me off buying it, and I will be getting a second one myself so that I can run 2 of them in the firm fridge. So in summary, I think it's a really great bit of kit. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to recommend this to anyone that's looking for a plastic pressure fermentation vessel to get them started. So that's all from me for this one. Do let me know your thoughts and feedback if you are using a snub nose yourself, and if you've got any other questions, please drop them into the comments. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, please give me a like and get subscribed if you haven't already done so. By the way, this is the first beer that came out of the Snub Nose, and I've got to say, it's an absolute banger. So cheers, everyone.
I'm the dude, so that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, you know, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.